for the sake of heaven and for the sake of Jerusalem and all of Israel. We'd like to give the merit of our study and the merit of our Torah to Raymond Rosentrader, Darlene, Malcolm Wilhelm, Amanda Elliott, Cody Lovejoy, Brooke Gibson, Paula Navarez, Garrett Matledge, Jordan Matledge, Faith of Texas Oncology, Rita Wilson, H.L. and Betty Munkuski, Ruby Cesar, Yeshaya Peak, Maria Wanstaff, Elise Hager, Nadine Freeman, Charles David, Noel Cardoza, David Douglas, Ebri Martin, Christopher Bedurka, Billy Holt, Logan Willis, Hodassa Da Martin, Gracie Bell Linder, Ty Harrington, Carol Scott, Damie Washington, Zelvin Woodard, Carol Gibson, Mrs. Cummings, the Rogers family, Kim Greenwood, Mrs. Brock, Bobby Williams Sr., Jake Suarez, David Jenkins, James London, Elvia Rosas, Hudahai Ben Matai Leah, Sam Peak, Brandon's family, Leela Briscoe, Blake Highland, Juliet Williams, Larry Langberg, Amber Merchant, Debbie January, Kimberly Brown, Baby Denard, Carol's family, Miranda Rosas, Frank Pollard, everybody written sideways, Linda Flora, Edna Kirk Driscoll, Abraham Moshe Ben Gilla, Linda Flora, Carla Lucerio, Sandra Hayes, Carol Peekle, Sean Smith, daughter of, what did I write there? Kalesa, I guess, I don't know.
Kalesa.
Kalesa, is that right? Kim Lively, Crespin Rodriguez, Sandra Hirth, Virgil Williams, Alexander, son of Jamie Justice, Gustavo De Leon, Simca Ben Abraham, and the daughter of Jeremy Adams. Prayer there read. Ruler of the universe and master of all masters, Father of mercy and forgiveness, we thank you, our God and the God of our fathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work, and that you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor. This is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all of our sins, and they should not bring separation between you and us. May it be your will before you, our God and the God of our fathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you, and may you listen to our utterances and open our closed heart to the hidden studies of your Torah. And may our study be pleasant before your place of honor, as a aroma of sweet incense, and may you emanate to us light from the source of our soul to all of our being. And may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you revealed your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit, the merit of their fathers, and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit, enlighten our eyes in our learning, as stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes, that I see wonders from your Torah. Because from his mouth God gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterance of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Hope everybody had a good Purim.
Hadassah's going to be a big sister.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness.
They've already started on their little Jewish family.
They are. They are. They're well into it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hope everybody had a good Purim. Before the class got going, we kind of went around and asked if you didn't know anything, how would you describe Purim to somebody? And so we kind of had an array of things. There was not a right answer, but we had a great Purim, and can't wait for it next year. They're on the Tour from Texas site is the teaching we did on that. So if anybody hadn't watched it, go watch that. It's pretty good. So today we are back in Bereshit in Genesis. We are in chapter 314. And 314 is Gematria what? Metatron. So we are going to kind of pick up where we left off, and what we're going to do is we're going to see as we go through this. We're going to go through it. We're going to tell what's going on, and then we're going to pick a few iterations along the way. And Esther is actually going to be one of them. All right, but we're going to pick a few iterations along the way, and so we can see what's going on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, once you know what the front side's doing, and you see what the back side's doing, it's easy to come up with the math and using the map, the Kabbalistic map, to figure out the sod of Easter. What's going on in the cleat? But once you see it, it's pretty cool. So let's get rolling. Last time, we'll back up a verse. Last time, and Hashem God said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent deceived me and I ate." So we know the what is the ma and the this is the zot. All right? And the ma is the masculine, the zot is the feminine. Now, and we know that the deceiving is the same as lifting up or to marry, and the ate is the same thing as marital union or zivug. All right? And we're going to, we've talked about the Havamina, or what was Eve thinking throughout this whole thing. And what we know, they were trying to accelerate Tikkun and everything, but what we're going to see is what she was actually doing. Didn't work, but she set in motion a system that would ultimately, in the whole Gilgal process, that her progeny would then use to fix the Tikkun. What appeared to be bad, and what was bad, actually set a coordinate in place to where redemption could happen. All right? Because we know we're dealing with Da'at, right? And we know we're dealing with the 7 lower sphirot, the tree of duality, right? And we know that this thing has gone from Ma, very masculine, to a very feminine. The world is female, right? It's gone down to the hay, all right? We know that there was an upper Gon, and now there is a lower Gon. So sometimes when it's talking upper Gon, sometimes it's talking lower Gon. So we always have to oscillate a little bit there, all right? Now, Genesis 13:14. He says to the serpent, "Because you have done this, accursed are you beyond all the cattle and beyond all the beasts of the field. Upon your belly you shall go, and the dust you shall eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will pound your head, and you will bite his heel." This is the section we're going to cover today. And as you can tell, it's a juicy one, right? Mm-hmm. And now, we used to say, okay, what is the Sunday school version of this, right? Mm-hmm. And we would get the old Sunday school version and how polluted it was of how we used to know it. We're not going to go through that. Everybody already in their own mind already went through their Rolodex and went, oh yeah, well this has to be this and this has to be that and blah, 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 blah. All right? Mm-hmm. So now, let's find out what's happening. What does God say to the serpent? He says, "You have done this." What do we know about the word this? It's Zot. Yeah. You have done Zot. You're the one that made it do this. You see? You're the one that dropped it from male to female. All right? Now remember, anytime you're dealing with serpent, if we're dealing with an upper Gon, holy serpent. Dealing with it in lower Gon, unholy serpent. Right? This is Nakash, 358, Mashiach, 358. It's also Da'at, correct? It's also Leviathan. Up here, holy Leviathan. Down here, contaminated Leviathan. Right? So we have to have that part of the map in order to understand what's fixing to happen. He said, you have taken it from Dukra, from the male, like Mayim Dukvin, from Dukra into this Asiya. You brought it down into a seat. All right? And the whole deception and the whole marriage thing. And after she ate the whole union, what was she thinking? we know once Guvarot is around, once this seduction is aroused, once the Guvarot are excited, then like attracts like, right? It's so there's a magnetism there, and now she has lost the da'at. So because Adam is ultimately at the time that all this is going on, he is like the story of Esther. The Zuhama had just happened, the surgery, right? Mm-hmm. And his mohin is now extracted, and she is the carrier of this mohin. So just like Esther was, all right. And even outside that now is his cerebral spinal neural network, which is the Nakash. So you kind of got to look at it, a big holographic nature going on here, all right. But we talked about she was doing it for the sake of heaven. What was she? How in the world could her doing this be for the sake of heaven? Because she realized what had happened. He just contaminated me, and he just got in, and he just took the da'at. Right? He's attaching himself to the mohin. And what is that? That is the nahi. The nahi is netzach, yesod, and hod. That's the term nahi. All right. So if we have we're just gonna go through it really quick. So Abba's nahi is the mohin bina, and bina's nahi is mohin zah, because light overlaps, right? Mm-hmm. All the way down. And so her Hava's mohin is Adam's nahi, and on down. Because da'at is always attached to over like you sewed, right? Is that right? Yes, da'at is always over your sewed. I'll go ahead and show this. See, and we look at it from the side, you can see how light it's always overlapping. So if we look at Yesod right here, or Da'at right here, if you flip it up, it's overlapping Yesod. Netzach, Yesod, and Hod. This is the Nahi. Okay. Alright? So the Mohin of this is the Nahi of the one above is the Mohin of the one below. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. So we're seeing this light overlapping and it's falling. Berea, you know, all these constructs are going on. Atzilut, Berea, Yitzira, Asiya. Nahi's falling, Da'at's falling, Nahi's falling, Da'at's falling. She realized she had just been tricked. She lost Da'at. How do you go take the At back on that's lower? How do you go take that back? She uses her Nahi. She was trying to take it back. What the Nakash had taken. The problem is it was too contaminated. She was sucked in the black hole, so to speak. The Guvarot was too heavy. Alright? Do y'all remember the story in Judges? We've gone over this before. A girl named Yael. Mm-hmm. And a general named Sisera. This is in the story of Judges. It's Judges 4:17 is where I'm reading from. Sisera fled on his feet to the tent of Yael, the wife of Heber the Canaanite. For there was peace between Yabin, king of Hazor, and the house of Heber the Canaanite. Yael went out towards Sisera and said to him, "Turn aside, my lord, turn aside to me, and do not fear." So he turned aside to her in the tent. She covered him with a blanket. He said to her, "Give me now a bit of water to drink because I am thirsty." She opened up a skin of milk, gave him to drink, and covered him. He said to her, "Stand at the entrance of the tent. And it shall be that if any man come to ask you and say, 'Is anyone here?' you shall say, 'No.'" Yael, wife of Heber, took a tent peg, placed a hammer in her hand, came to him stealthily, and drove the peg into his temple, and it went through the ground while he was sleeping and exhausted, and he died. Now, that is our iteration. Can anybody tell me what Yael was doing? In the Song of Deborah, there is a repetition that happens 7 times. Because what she does to this general is she used the coordinate that Eve had put in cosmic time. She went in to the tent and had union with this man 7 times in a row with her Nahi, right? And then took a tent peg and pushed it, hammered it through his da'at. He's the Nakash, she's Hava. Except she's now doing the tikkun for Hava. Okay?
So how was she not contaminated?
Huh?
How was she not contaminated?
How was she not contaminated? It was far enough beyond the klipa of the heavy din that she could extract it. Right? This is what Yael did. So the Nakash is seducing her and she's seducing him back. She's a master. She knows what's going on. And she's setting this in time. What happens with Queen Esther?
She's doing the same thing.
Queen Esther did the same thing. Except in the story, Esther took it back. What did she do? She went in and had a dinner eating with Akashverosh and Haman. What is eating? It's code. See what she's doing there? She takes it back. And then Esther said, and saw him kneeling. The eye. Then the very next verse that comes through, and Harvona is now the good guy. Right? Harvona is Sandalphon. Metatron. It went from lower to upper. From contaminated. Harvona at the first of the story, not such a good guy. Harvona at the end of the story, saves the day. You see? She's inverting the whole thing. She's doing tikkun of the whole thing. The eating and the extraction of the mochi and the nahi, it's all the same. Depending on which level you're looking at it from. She was using a higher level. Yael was using a lower level. Same result. What happened with Lot's daughters? Same thing. What happened with Tamar? Same thing. What appears to be such an evil act as even Hava and the serpent is how they're extracting the 7 and the nahi of the lower and elevating it up. That they're using Sandalphon, the bottom lip. That's what they're doing. So, Eve is Messiah ben Joseph at this point. So she's using Yesod. Yesod Abba, just as in the story Esther. She's thinking that light is going to burn out all the klipa that the Nakash has put in her. It didn't work. Okay? Only it didn't work apparently, but as you see in the coordinates that go down in iteration, it did work. Ultimately. Because only a source that is greater or equal to a thing can destroy a thing. In other words, Messiah is 358, Nakash is 358. It has to be equal to or greater than to destroy the thing. So he says, because you have done Zot and caused the descent of all the worlds of creation, that was the curse. When we think of curse, we think that God put on him something different. I'm going to curse you. You know, you're going to be this, and you're going to be this, and you're going to be purple, and you're going to be on this. No, his actions caused his own demise, and that is called the curse. Does that make sense? Because the curse is only defining collapse. That's the definition of collapse. Death or the curse. It is not a cursing as we would portray it to be. The curse is 4D to 3D. From male to female. The lights have left and now evil has control of them. Now the one that does this thing, his curse is worse than all the other ones. Because he's the one that initiated it, he's fallen to the lowest level. Remember we talked last time, Hashem comes to look down. First he talks to the man, Berea. Then the woman, and now what we're going to find out is after he tells them what all has happened to them, when he goes back, he talks to the serpent, then he talks to the woman, then he talks to the man. He's going back up. All right? The serpent is now at the bottom because we know the serpent comes from the animal kingdom. And so he is now not only in the animal kingdom, he's at the bottom of the animal kingdom. The lowest thing. The curse is only the paradigm shift, the paradigm collapse. And he says, from all cattle, and the word beyond all cattle and beyond all beasts can also be read as from all cattle and from all beasts. Because if something in that realm causes a collapse, every animal or everything in that then curses him too. All right? So every animal tries to kill a snake. They can. You know? Deer stomp on them, horses stomp, everything. All right? Because they know it caused it. Since the Nakash thought to raise his head from power over the Holy One, therefore, because he thought to raise his head, the top part of him, his feet were cut off. What are his feet? Upon your belly you shall go. So God cuts his feet off. What are his feet?
Netzach and Hod.
Beautiful. Netzach and Hod. So what does Zohar say about the Leviathan? God kills the female Leviathan, but what does he do to the male Leviathan? He castrates him. Right? What does Ham do to Noah? He's trying to get back. The Klippa's trying to get back. Because Noah is Yesod Adam. Alright? So he is ultimately has no legs on the Peshat. He's on his belly crawling like a snake on the Peshat. But the other God, which is what he was trying to be, is now castrated. That makes sense? The other gods produce nothing. Okay? Now, therefore his feet would be cut off. Now you're beyond your belly. And if y'all watched the teaching on Torah from Texas from last week about the Gahon, the Vav in the middle of the Torah, you know, in the belly of the serpent, that whole thing is on there. It says, because you have done this in sheker, which means falseness. The shin has a flat bottom. The kuf has two parts. The shin has three parts, right? The kuf has two parts, but it teeters. The resh has one leg, and it teeters, and it just has one leg. So from the word sheker, or falseness, because you started your conversation with her with falseness, it went from 3D to 2D to 1D. Boom, boom, boom. That's the 3 of the shin, the 2 of the kuf, and the 1 of the resh. Because the Torah says falseness has no feet. Sheker has no feet. Flatland is called Alma Deshaka, which means the physical false land. Because what he did is we say this whole land is just a simulation reality. It's not real. The Nakash created it out of falseness. That's why none of it is real. As compared to the above and above and above and above. Since it was cut off, and its root, which was the primordial serpent, evil serpent, the backside of Leviathan was the root of falseness. He began by speaking falseness. This is the sod of the other god is castrated and does not produce, because it has no netzach and hod, no testes. Therefore, it was relevant that the feet are removed and the lower da'at is taken out. Therefore, you see that the Goyish priest, that the Catholic priest of the nations do not marry women, in order to show that other gods do not produce any offspring. So, why do the other gods that don't marry, and the nuns don't marry either, right? They say their act of celibacy is because they're marrying to God. God's first commandment in the whole Torah is be fruitful, multiply. Okay? So, on their feast, opposite Esther, is Easter. What do they have for their feast?
A non-fertile egg.
It has to be animalistic, because it's from an animal. Remember the teaching. The exiles. The fifth tip of the Yud is Egypt. They have, the Babylonian is the camel. The Persian is the oryx. The Greek is the hare. And Rome is the boar. Right? If Rome is now cut off, and they have no Nahi, so they have to go to the Da'at above, which is the Nahi of the next realm, which is the hare, which is the rabbit. So because they have Greek mindset, you see, their religion produces nothing, but because there has no Nahi, but they have to have Mohin. But the Mohin is only the Nahi of the Greek. So they have the rabbit, because rabbit is a lot of fertility. You know, the old saying, breed like rabbits, right? So they have a rabbit, an Easter bunny. And the Easter bunny is always hunting for an Easter egg. An egg has no fertilization. It's hard-boiled, there's nothing in it but candy. There's nothing fertile about it. They hard boil the thing and color it. They try to dress it up and make it pretty. All right? So then you have your Easter egg hunt, because rabbits don't lay eggs anyway. But you see what they had to do with the nahi and the mohiing of the whole thing. This is cosmic going on. Iterations of this right here. And all the exiles that it caused. Then the next thing you get to do is you get to eat all your Easter candy. What is eating? Zebu. Now you have just had union with the other gods' infertility. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. The sod of the dust. The Nakash wanted to have control of Adam's Nephesh, Ruach, and Neshama. He caused a blemish in the external garments of all three. But he failed and only had control of the external part. He wanted to control all of it, but he only had the external part of all three. But mainly the Nephesh. He did not have control of Ruach and Neshama. And this part, this external part, is the physical body. The flesh is the skin of the serpent. And the skin decays and returns back. Because, do you remember the or goes to Ain, right? And Ain is Gematria 70, the 70 nations. And this is the whole secret of the boar in the forest on the Zohar teaching we did on Torah from Texas about the floating ayin in Psalms, which is the same as par 280. 280 is par, secret of the red heifer. Why is it floating? The ayin, which is the ger, right? The holy head of Esau, it's floating. It's trying to go back to Aleph, in which it fell. So the light is the fallen light, the fallen skin of Nakash. He killed the female Leviathan. It's going to be inverted, elevated back up to the Aleph, back to Da'at, because it's fell in the Nahi. It's going to go back up to Da'at. That is the feast of Leviathan. Knowing the ultimate knowledge of God. So to dust, and he will eat dust. See, eating is zivug. You will eat dust. And that dust is the physical, the physicality. The Ruach and Neshama return to God, and it is not affected at all. Only the crust of all three, but the Nephesh is affected. This is only true while the Klippa exists. But the dust will return. As it says in Isaiah, he will swallow up death forever. How do we know that the serpent is not cursed for all eternity and that it's redeemed? How do we know? It says, and the dust you shall eat all the days of your life. What's he saying? It doesn't say for eternity. What's a day in this class?
Sphero.
It's a sphero. How many does he have? 6. Right? He has 6 spheros. trying to get you sowed, trying to get the Ak, trying to take Adam's Nahi.
Gotcha.
See?
Okay.
That's Ak you sowed. He doesn't have her.
That's right.
He got the Nahi, trying to get the Nahi. So he's got the 6. Because all these 6 go to Yesod. Boom, 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 right? How long is it going to last? 6,000 years. All the days of all the sphirot of your life. Doesn't say forever. Doesn't say eternity. Because Isaiah says he's going to swallow, lower lip, everything going back up. Right? And these spherotes are cleansed. They're cleaned off. This is the secret of all mitzvah. Cleaning off the spherot. What is that? Fallen kings of Edom. So, he says, I will put enmity between you and the woman. Between your offspring and her offspring. So evidently, Satan has offspring. Right? Why did Cain kill Abel? So, we know the sacrifice, da da da. What's the so?
He wanted his food.
The Nakash desire was for Eve. Okay? Abel has 2 wives, 2 sisters. The Nakash only has 1, Cain. He kills Abel because he wants he wants 2. He's always wanting that Guvarot. Who are the 2 women? Rachel and Leah. Iteration, they're the 2 Hays.
It says in Sefer Zerubbabel that Satan had sex with the stone statue and that they gave birth to Armulus.
Which is the ruler of Rome, right?
Yeah, the Mary, the statue of Mary.
Yeah, because it is infertile. You see, it's
because right there where it's talking about, it talks about Ozpanim, the hard face, and I think that's the Pope.
So what is enmity? Ava. Ava, I'm calling. It's Ava. The Nakash was afflicted from head to tail on all levels. Dust you shall eat. He was smitten in his head and in his tail. He thought to increase the love of the woman for him, that she would cling to him and fully reject her husband. And she received him. What is she seeing? She's only seeing the neural network of Adam anyway. Right? And it's probably pretty attractive. This thing is iterating out with Cain and Abel. He's trying to woo and seduce one of the 2 Hays away from Abel. Right? And so what does he do? He kills Abel. And Abel, the Da'at of Abel is Moshe. Moses is the Da'at of Abel. And Moses comes back because it's all about Da'at. Right? And Eve already programmed in how to get Da'at back. Moshe gets Da'at back. Who does Moshe have to go down there and confront? The great serpent, Pharaoh. And there arose a Pharaoh whom Joseph did not know. Right? The evil Nakash. And the story continues. And it was decreed upon him, the Nakash. And it began with love, but it ended with enmity. Where do we see this iteration in Torah? King David had a son called Amnon, and he had a daughter with another wife called Tamar. They were half brothers and sisters. It started in love, but it ended in Amnon raping her. Same thing. Nakash is raping. Even before this decree, there was already hatred between these two, Hava and the Nakash. But the Guvarot couldn't resist. The supernal judge is now setting this boundary forever, in order that the klipa cannot mix with kedusha. Enmity is a separation. I'll put something there between your offspring and her offspring until the final tikkun. And it says, when the child will play at the opening of the hole of the viper. Right? This primordial hatred is what caused the Nakash to continue, what causes the Nakash to continue to attack Israel and cause them evil. In Lamentations, it starts out in chapter 1, verse 1, the city sits alone. The first 4 letters of the city sits alone is Aleph, Yud, Bet, Hey. Ava. Enmity. Lamentations is the book talking about the fall of all this and the separation of all this. And they can't get back together. Alright? So, if God has put something between the Nakash and Israel, and it's set forever, how can the Nakash keep attacking Israel? He said, I'm going to separate y'all, and I'm putting this between y'all. Yet, the Nakash, Israel, is still utterly attacked. Can anybody figure out what the separation was? What it was that he set? Go back a couple weeks. And Bina, Elohim, comes down and they put a fig leaf to separate the light and the darkness, right? They put a fig leaf there. What is that fig leaf? What is that apron? That's the light of Bina. And use it, and they sewed for themselves aprons. Sewing is taking one aspect and attaching it to another aspect. We know that the word aprons can be written with the vowels or without the 2 vowels. Without the 2 vowels, it equals Torah. What are the things they're sewing together? The oral Torah and the written Torah. So what is this thing that he placed between the Satan's offspring and Israel and Adam's offspring? The Torah. If Israel would use the formula that God set to separate them out and would keep the Torah, all the Torah, the Nakash has 0 power. But when they don't attack, because they have removed the very thing that God set as a boundary. You see. Those that come from the root of the serpent attack and destroy everything on his holy mountain. However, in the depths of Hashem, he arranged that Hava would have intercourse with her husband first before the fall of the Nakash. Remember back a few classes back, 4 or 5 weeks, where we studied, and the Nakash saw them engaging in union. Right? upper gone. Then the seduction and the whole thing starts to fall. Now lower gone, now it's carnality. So, a woman doesn't cut a covenant but with the one who makes her a vessel. This is the Brit. This is the Brit. This is the actual covenant. Because she is the Tered HaYesod at that point, right? So she is still tied to Adam. How do we know that? What's the light of Ma? The light of Ma is Adam. 26 and 19. It emanated out in union. Then they had to be separated. They were already in Zivu. God arranged it. So, because why is He allowing this to do that? Why is He allowing separation here? Let's see here. Oh, I didn't go back far enough. God said, let there be light. And there was light. God saw the light was good. And God separated between the light and darkness.
Ah.
And then He did this, and then He called to the light day and the darkness night. Right? He said, let there be a firmament of waters, then let them separate.
Yeah.
It's only following the entire emanation creation process. And it's just now going from all of creation to man. What does He do? Separates man and woman. Alright? Then He separates the darkness from the men and the women. And separate. What's the first thing you do when you go through a conversion? They're going to separate you from all Gentiles. Right? Separate, 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 separate. Because you can't come back together unless there's a separation. Simpson. So she is still tied to Adam. A Brit is the lip of suction that returns. The Orla is removed. The Orla is called the serpent. This is the reason that Jews cannot be married to non-Jews. Because cosmically, it can't happen. They are separated. Because the Goy is the root and the children of the Nakash. And the enmity is set. Hashem preempted the Tikkun by placing this Ava to separate the light and the darkness, the 70. So, if the mother is Jewish, and she was to marry a non-Jew, and the daughter be Jewish, she has to marry a Jew. If the father is Jewish, and the mother is a non-Jew, even though it's not recognized by the court of heaven, and they have a daughter, she's just as half Jewish as the other girl is, but she can marry a non-Jew. Because the father was Jewish, not the mother. Because it has gone from Ma to Zot. Everything goes through the woman. That's why the Jewish lineage is through the women. Now, it actually flips there at Sinai, but this is the iteration. You know, it used to be Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that whole deal. That boom, 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 boom. The masculine aspect. But it's just following this pattern here. He will pound your head and you bite his foot. The pashat is that the injection of the zuhama, I guess, is the word for it. I can't remember that. We'll call it the head. All right. The sin is that he injected poison. The Nakash injected poison into Hava. Therefore, snakes have poison. The snake gets no pleasure in biting because that's the only thing it can do. The kasha is, what is pound your head? Because if you read it in the Hebrew, I'll read it in the English first. It says, he will pound your head and you will bite his heel. Who is he? It says, he's talking to the snake. And he says, he will pound your head and you will bite his heel. Who is he? The fact of the matter is the word your and his is not written in the Hebrew. It has been added to read well in English. It should say, he will pound head and you will bite heel. What is heel? Heel is the nukva. By herself cannot attack the nakash and smash his head. Only with her husband can this be done. I.e. the male, through the male can this be done. This is why the Shekhinah is in such pain and exile. She can't receive help from her husband to overcome the Sitra Akra. This is why the Nakash has power over Israel while in exile. Only when she receives the ration, the Shekhinah only receives the ration life force and the Nakash takes it for himself. This is why Rachel is crying for her children and there is no one to console her. There is no Zah. What is Zah? The Torah. So if the Torah was studied in all the land, that's Zah. It says where people study Torah, the Shekhinah is. But it has to be the whole thing. It can't be part of an atom. It has to be the whole atom. The whole atom is Mashiach. You see? It's all the Jews, not just 2 million of them. If there's 12 million of them, it's got to be 12 million of them. At that point, God has already decreed he could then pound head. Right? It'd be over with. But the Zivug will be reinstated. And you will smash head. The male will be with the Nukva and give her the power over the Sitra Akra, and he will totally be destroyed. The Nakash is called Akiv, which means heel, which is the same root of the word Yaakov, Jacob. The heel is the lowest level of creation. He's not saying you're going to bite Adam's heel. He's saying that you bite heel. You are the heel. You are the lowest rung of the foot of the creation, of the bottom of Hod, of the bottom of the barrel. Now, Peshat is, a snake bites you, he's going to bite you in the foot. Unless you put your hand in there. You know? So, Jacob, his word his root word of the name Yaakov comes from this Akiv, which is a new word for the Nakash. God's calling him this right here. What does Esau have a birthmark on his heel of what? Of the Nakash, of the serpent. And so, what is the holy serpent Jacob doing?
Covering it.
Covering it. The Torah is amazing and the Sage is amazing. We'll see you next week.